If I may quote Claire Short in a film, in the court of public opinion, he is despised, and we all know who she's talking about. Now, you must have known there must have been an appetite for this material.
Yes, but we were shadowing the Chilcot inquiry, which turned out to be incredibly frustrating because it kept being postponed. Any excuse to kick it further down the road, so the film got kicked further and further down the road because we wanted to come out around the time of the Chilcot inquiry, because we thought that mountains would move when Chilcot reported, as he was bound to, the extent of the bloody disaster all of this has been. But in fact, although that's what Chilcot did report, have you heard anyone talking about the Chilcot report recently? Indeed, one of the reasons for the timing of the coup against Corbyn was deliberately to divert parliamentary, political, public relations attention away from the grave consequences that ought to have followed the Chilcot inquiry. And it's as I said in the introduction, though, to be honest, although he's despised at the court of public opinion, although he lingers like a bad smell, he's very far from finished. He's still being hired by all these tyrannies and corporations, and he still controls at least 150 members of parliament. Now, 150 members of parliament is a big political force. You are seeing now what that number of members of parliament can do destructively. And he and Campbell and Straw and Mandelson, they're still right at the centre of Labour Party events. And that's what's causing all the trouble at this moment.
Well, in the film, were there many concerns about what you and what others could say? Did you have lawyers looking at the material?
Sure, but I really hope that Tony Blair sues me, because if we can't get him into The Hague at the moment, imagine 3 or 4 weeks at the High Court in the Strand, Tony Blair versus me, when under oath he would have to answer every question about every penny, about every deal, about every killing. That's why I was able to reassure my lawyers. Trust me, I know about these things. Tony Blair ain't going to sue me. But don't worry, Clapham Picture House. As I've said at the end of the film, all the responsibility is mine, no one else's.
Is there anything you can share with us here that didn't make it into the cut, that might not have been allowed?
No, I think the boldest claim is the one made by Seamus Milne, now Corbyn's Director of Communications, then Associate Editor of The Guardian. The strongest claim made, the one that the lawyers probably spent most time over, is in a way the most important domestic point, that it is impossible to avoid the conclusion that Blair knew that the decisions he was making about deregulating banks, light touch control of the finance centre in the city, would lead to his enrichment after leaving office. He must have known that destroying Iraq would lead to boundlessly grateful tyrants in the royal families all around Iraq. And it's impossible to avoid the suspicion that, knowing these two things, that did not influence the decisions that he made. And if so, then that's a knife, as Seamus said, a knife at the heart of our political and democratic systems, because how will you know in future that your Prime Minister is saying and doing things because they think they're right, rather than because they think that they will be richly rewarded further down the line? Now, Cameron who did a fair bit of damage himself, is an equally young man, younger than Blair. In other words, Blair still has a decade or more of big earning, maybe 20 years of big earning in front of him. Cameron has 30 or 35 years of big earning in front of him. It's one of the only good things that Theresa May is not actually that young, because we're going to have to get used to this. It's another good reason for electing Corbyn. He's even older than me. But you're going to have to get used to this, that younger prime ministers and ministers take decisions and then richly profit from them when they leave office, and that's very dangerous.
I mean, someone says early on that there shouldn't have to be rules for this kind of thing. Do you think there should be rules?
Well, I think that was David Davis, who, since the film, is now back in the cabinet. But he's an outstanding and honourable person, even though he's a Tory. This question that you ask me illuminates a bigger and important thing. You see, we've always prided ourselves on the fact that we don't have rules. We don't have a constitution. We don't have a Bill of Rights. We just kind of know instinctively where boundaries and barriers are. But what this film shows is that for that period of 10 years, what we had in Britain was effectively a coup. It was the seizure of power by a man who was effectively a president, without any of the checks and balances that a presidential system has to have. In the US, there's the Congress, which has clearly defined powers. The president's powers are clearly defined. The Supreme Court is another check, balance on what the other branches of government are doing. We had none of that. And God love her, Claire Short, what she was saying in that film is actually pretty pathetic. She was saying, he never treated us like a cabinet. He never discussed anything with us. We never agreed to anything. Well, why did you stay in the cabinet in that case? At least, why didn't you resign with Robin Cook when it might have made a difference? So the cabinet was effectively usurped, but they all continued to sit there and not say so. If Sir William Patey, later the head of the Foreign Office, but then the head of the Middle East Department, said to Craig Murray, Honourable Ambassador Craig Murray, if he said to him, WMD, of course not, it's bollocks, why didn't he tell us? Imagine if the head of the Middle East Department in the Foreign Office had said, the Prime Minister's lying, it's bollocks. There would have been no war. But he didn't. Neither did Claire Short. Neither did the embedded journalists, Andrew Marr and these other creeps. They effectively facilitated the great crimes you've just been watching.